potential, with a lot of resilience, even with the challenges we have. We still are growing. Our growth is now 5.6, and despite all the challenges, if we only brought in the normalcy, I think we will do well. So on the side, under the CS and others, we are pushing KRA on tax administration. You have seen we have also extended the tax amnesty, which will give us a revenue of about 30 billion. We have RMLF, which now we are saying it should come to Exchequer, because this is important to support the revenues for us. And then we have done a lot of SOE reforms, which we expect to raise to reduce the expenditure by about 7.3 billion. And all these are important reforms that require the support of Kenyans. So maybe I'll stop here for now, and it is my wish, and the wish of us in Treasury colleagues, that we have Kenyans support the process of budget making and the collection of revenues as required. We have also learned our lessons, and we will do more engagement. We will improve our communication. I think we have agreed we'll do regular updates every maybe 1 month or 2 months, where we inform the nation on where we are on many areas of economic activity, and probably also do more. I think we are telling KRA to do more education and awareness, so that people see what the value for paying taxes. And I think Kenyans are right when they ask how their money is being used. That's a legitimate question. And we encourage Parliament and everybody to ask us of how we have used the money. But let us get the revenues required for us to run the budget for the nation. Thank you very much.
Members, I know there is a lot of interest. What we'll do is we'll take the first round of 5 members.
Then the National Treasury answers, then we continue like that. And then on the team of the National Treasury, we request that you note them down so that we answer them in wholesale. 1, let me start from here. Over the last 3 days, we have noted also something that should be corrected. And by the way, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, most of the issues you'll hear from these members, they are generally to enrich. We've had a lot of questions also asking ourselves on how to improve our economy, and therefore whatever things you are going to hear, some are actually opinions as much as they are also answers, they are questions.
Because you also want to be a part of the solution. And in that regard, you realize Kenya being the informal economy it is, I mean a lot of activities happening informally, then there is a lot of levies and fees to collect beyond the taxes in terms of targets. And we have noted one thing that is very peculiar, which the National Treasury should take note of. Now that there is a squeeze in terms of exchequer, almost all the other departmental committees with sagas below them, all of them are requesting for enhancement of A&A.
Enhancement of A&A meaning they are just requesting for them to be allowed to spend more. Meaning there is a lot of space in that area. Look, for example, tourism fund, tourism promotion fund. This report indicates our tourism numbers have risen by close to 30%. But then there is nothing commensurate to show that the A&A being gotten from this enhancement in tourism, that this money is going into helping some of the problems that we have. And our advice as the committee is this: A&A must stop being the preserve of the collector. This is public money. Whether you call it sports fund, whether you call it tourism promotion fund, whether you call it tourism fund, these are Kenyans' money. Because then we have seen some kind of empire building, where because you have collected A&A, you want to look for expenditure to utilize that A&A. Treasury must initiate at this process, taking care of the current situation you are in. You must initiate changes in law. I know it's our work, but also you know what to do as a National Treasury. We open up the fund of tourism. We open up a sports fund. We open up all the other funds including the one for CA, that this money cannot continue to be constrained to be used for specific purposes. SOEs is the same. The only detail we have as a committee is transfer to this agency. But the truth of the matter is that PS, and you know, civil servants in Kenya are not the problem when it comes to recurrent expenditure. The problem is neither the people seated in this hall. They could be, but they are a little problem. The bigger problem is SOEs, state-owned enterprises and parastatus. We must find a way of getting the fresh out. Just the same way everyone has gotten a haircut, it cannot continue being that the budget making process, so to say, of Kenya Pipeline, of Kenya Post Authority, of all the other cash-rich agencies, that the board, that it stops with the board. It cannot continue to be like that. And I want you to check something called IRA, Insurance Regulatory Authority. And if it's possible, because it lies under the National Treasury, tell us how much is the money an employee per, I mean, how much money is allocated per employee in that agency, for example. How much surplus do they remit to the National Treasury? So that we continue now providing a solution to the lack of money by first of all taking the money that is low-lying fruit. Second thing is I want you to tell this committee also, PS, whether we are within the constitutional threshold when it comes to development expenditure and the entire budget. What it is provided in the law, whether we are within. The other thing is public participation projects. As the National Treasury, you are aware, that is usually non-negotiable. Because Kenyans have already proposed these projects, they are waiting for them, and therefore the haircut of 1.5 billion cannot be permitted. And therefore, before you leave, please identify for us whether we are cutting from the National Treasury or whichever other place, because this money has to be availed today. And lastly, taxes. If you have this, you can give us an answer. Kenya, I have said before, is most of our activities are informal. How many Kenyans pay taxes? Vis-a-vis, so if you have the number, how many Kenyans are working? What is the working population in Kenya? And number two, how many of those pay taxes? Let me go to Honorable Vice Chair first.
Thank you, Chair. Let me just appreciate His Excellency Prime Cabinet Secretary and your team for a very good job. I have a few concerns. Let me go straight to the first one. And I think before I say that, I must say this is a very healthy conversation, Chair. And this revision of the budget and the submissions from National Treasury goes forward to allay the fears that the finance bill was still alive, the finance bill of 2024-25. So this is a confirmation that that finance bill is dead. That is why we are here revising the budget. My first one is on the impact of winding up the 47 SOEs. It's a good thing. We've saved 7.3, and I believe going forward we will save even more. But my concern is this. We've looked at some of these 47 SOEs in our various departmental committees. Some of them, their allocation have been reduced to 0. And now my concern is, whereas we're trying to save, cut down, you know, we're looking for to create more jobs, we also need to protect the existing ones. So what are the National Treasury, what are the plans? Are you designating these employees? Are you sending them to other departments? I think it would be good to know, because there's 0 allocation. Case in point is Kenya Academies of Sports. My second concern is on pending bills. You say the policy direction is no further accumulation of pending bills. But now we are wondering, how will this be possible given that some of the deductions are on development expenditure. Reductions affecting ongoing projects, some with certificates. And you've just alluded to the fact that there would even be more consequences in terms of the legal impacts arising from that. So meaning our pending bills actually will increase. So how shall we be looking at that? And my third one is on, you said our growth rate is expected to remain resilient at 5.5. Now, given the reductions on development, also looking at the impacts on the services sector occasioned by the demonstrations, the crowding effect leading to increase in interest rates as a result of domestic borrowing that we're looking forward to, and many other factors. Do you still think that the growth rate will hold at 5.5% going to the future? And finally, we're talking about austerity measures. You have elaborated on all these initiatives and policy directions, but you've not touched on corruption, because that is one area we would save a lot of money. What are the plans? What are the strategies? How are we going to net in on corruption so that we make further savings? Thank you.
Let me go to Honorable Mayor Masara.
Thank you. First, I want to congratulate the Prime Cabinet Secretary that you have broken the record to be acting minister in almost 22 institutions. I think nobody will ever break that. Congratulations once again. And I want to remind you, I'm married at your place, so when you are writing your CV as the person who has broken the record, you remember Masara there. I wanted people to laugh because we are in interesting times. Things are very tough. My concern, first I want to appreciate how you have presented the document, because it has enriched the mind of the Kenyans on the happenings, the current happenings, more so on the issue of finance bill and the budget process. I want only to invest much of our time on the carryovers. Kindly let the committee know that these carryovers, more so the ones for developments, for counties, were they for development or recurrent? Because if they were for development, some of which are going to attract what is called penalties. So kindly furnish us with that information. And then part of the carryovers, let us know if there were already payment certificate issued, because that one, as the Vice Chairman has said, will also increase the issue of the interest rates. My another concern is the issue of corruption. You have not mentioned as a treasury what you are going to do, but we don't have official communication. But the former president mentioned the money we were losing per day on corruption. You remember? If we can shield those loopholes, it means that money we are losing, we can get it instead of taxing Kenyans. Another issue is that you have not talked about auditing the public debts, because we are complaining about the interest we pay on public debts. But if you ask any Kenyan, including the technocrats, we don't know where this money was taken. Particularly if you want now audit, this borrowing was done in this country, it was meant for a particular project. Did that project stimulate the economy? Or is that project completed, or is it existing? We don't have such a records. And finally, you have talked of winding up of 47 parastatals. I believe they were having recurrent expenditure. Now that they are not going to be there, you have not mentioned the amount which used to be allocated to this parastatal, of which now you are not going to allocate. Because we are looking for ways of ensuring that our budget is financed. So we must go for other areas where you are forgotten. And then finally, on the current development project you are projecting to do in this financial year, are they going to stimulate the economy so that the economy can grow, or there are some are political, which are going to be white elephant, but the public money is going to be spent. Thank you.
Honorable Dr. Daktari, Secretary General.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for the clear and precise presentation. I have one or two issues to raise. One, when you look at the areas where budget cuts have been effected, like in the area of electricity and in public facilities, that is the last mile, water and sanitation, roads, school infrastructure, and even construction of TVETs. Actually, the moment you remove money from these areas, you can easily ground the country. And so, in my proposal, why can't we have budget cuts focusing on recurrent expenditure and operations more than in the area of development, so that we raise money for development by effecting budget cuts in the area of operation? For example, there are so many areas like the mergers of parastatals, as has been said, austerity measures in various ministries that are duplicating each other. We've been in this budget committee and we've seen, for example, the commission on Nairobi River being implemented by 3 ministries, and each of them is bringing a budget here for implementing the same thing. I don't know whether you've been able to identify those duplication of roles so that we can remove money and rechannel this money in this area. And so we can be able to raise money if we are serious. The other thing is, apart from just the normal budget presentations, has the ministry done a 3-5-year projection on austerity measures and say, within the next 4-5 years, if we actually delve into austerity measures properly, we can raise this amount and channel it to development. Finally, what is the impact of the pending bills of 2023-2024 financial year to the 2024-2025 budget? What is the fate of this carryover? Thank you, Chairman.
Then we go to Honorable Miri Mabona.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to thank the Cabinet Secretary and the entire Treasury for a good presentation. And Chair, I just want to say that I support the budget cuts, and even though that I think we can reduce even further. I think I'm not saying just because of what is happening here. I have actually said it before in this committee, because we need to be very realistic in the way we do our budgeting. I saw a comment by one of the Gen Zs that was actually equating our national budget to our own family budgets. And if you have only 10,000 Kenya shillings and you need to do food, buy food and buy shoes, you can't do shoes and then leave food. But the way we have been budgeting is actually the opposite. We are buying shoes and leaving food. And when we do that, then there is pressure for us to increase revenue, and hence the finance, infamous finance bill. So for me, it's very important that we are more realistic, because we create an artificial need for revenue when we can actually budget as a country within our means. I know we have blamed the IMFs and all, and I'm sure they are doing wrong. But first, let us point fingers at ourselves before we point fingers even at the IMF, because there are things we can do at home that don't need to put those kind of pressure on us. Chair, the only thing, other thing I wanted to indicate is that I've seen that the Treasury has indicated areas where they need the cuts, but without premising them on certain principles. And that's why Daktari is actually going back to leave this and that. If you want to be very fair, it's always good to move on principles. And for me, one, which I've again said several in this committee, is there equity? One, in the cuts. And secondly, not only just in the cuts, but in the spreading out of the little since we are going on austerity measures. And the Chair, I don't want to be selfish, but this is a very skeletal document, which, and if with the documents that you have on cards, yeah, they are about from page 1 to page 9, yeah. If you are looking at the estimates, the printed estimates, they are like this voluminous, they are that big. What is the possibility that 2 projects in my constituency, for instance, would be here? That shows lack of equity. I don't mind programs in my constituency being removed for us to deal with the issues of austerity now and to deal with the crisis in the country, but there must be equity, both in cuts and also in spreading out what is remaining. Secondly, we must look at or preserve the pro-people project, the one that reaches people directly, especially Gen Zs, in terms of job creation, but also in terms of training. So if you are removing the ones that are reaching them, but we are retaining some which may not have that sort of value, it doesn't help. Then third, projects that can stimulate the economy. And Chair, for instance, there are some construction, there are ongoing constructions which you don't need. I know there are many we've removed, but there are some that I've actually seen that are there. Again, consolidating roles is another. Unfortunately, one of the areas I've seen is an area I'm very passionate about, so I will not say it, I will not mention it, but it's an area I'm very passionate about. But they have 3 different agencies doing one thing. It's a lot of wastage. And if you are serious, and that's what part of the conditionalities I think that IMF has given us, but we are going round and round like we are not able to. Again, Chair, the issue of public participation. Because we went to the public, they told us where the issue is pinching, let's not remove that. And finally, Chair, on a light note, I can, you have told us that the demonstrations are keeping tourists away. But I actually think it's the opposite. If you can actually do away with the police beating demonstrators and the goons that are somehow infused, why? Because Ugandans will come here, Nigerians will come to see our Gen Zs are actually demonstrating with style, you know. They are good, they dance, they do no peaceful, no distraction, so we can actually use it to bring more tourists. So just be nice to the Gen Zs. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Chris Aseka, member for Quisero.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, PCS, and I want to declare some interest. PCS is my political father. We only parted ways when he declared an earthquake.
So umeharibika afterwards.
No, when he declared an earthquake, I thought maybe it would bring down the whole world. I didn't know that it was a political earthquake. But it's good to know that he's brought me up in politics. I have to. I may not be an authority in economics, but I think the technical people from Treasury are. When you reduce a budget by a whopping 138 billion from development expenditures, what it means that you are reducing economic activities in the economy. The net effect is that the collections will be down and the economy will not grow. The PS has alluded to the same, but I don't know if the PS interacted with this document before it was brought to the National Assembly. 2, when you reduce domestic travels, it means you are affecting service industry in the entire country. The net effect is that the economy will not grow. I agree with my Vice Chair. How do you expect to grow this economy by 5.5%? 2, you have indicated that you are trying to encourage direct foreign investment in this country. We've had reports that many investors are fleeing out of Kenya to our neighboring countries. What could be the reasons? And from where you sit, Treasury, is there a strategy you've put in place to really attract this direct foreign investment? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable David Ochieng.
Chair, thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much, PCS and the PS Treasury. Got a couple of questions. The first one is, Chair, the finance bill
that everyone keeps talking about, where did it come from? Treasury or State House? What is your role in it? Because everyone's trying to wash their hands off it. It now became Parliament's baby. And there are things there that were brought in the last Finance Act as remedies to the situation that we had at that time. For example, we reduced taxation on cooking oil. We were proposing to increase it in this budget. We reduced, in the finance bill, we reduced the price of bread. We were all of a sudden increasing it. The motor vehicle tax, and all these things. Where did these proposals come from? Because it is the elephant in the room. The last financial year, 2023-24, the finance bill was quite top heavy. And we were told that if you just pass this finance bill, if you just allow this housing labor and all these things, they will have revenues. But the reports we are now getting is that the returns from the 2023-2024 Finance Act are not what we projected. What went wrong? Why are we not able to harness the gains we made in the Finance Act 23-24? Number two, the KRA reforms. Because, Chair, as you would know, and we've been told, this is not conjecture, there are KRA staff who are running mini KRAs. We've been told through the media so many times the fact that the KRA could actually collect more than what they're collecting now by half, meaning they could collect 1.5 of what they're collecting now. Why must we mix KRA reforms with the finance bill? Why can't we just pick out the reforms we need to work on KRA? If it is corruption, if it is systems, if it is the people. Because we are losing money in that regard. I personally believe, and I still believe to date, we did not need a finance bill this financial year. If we had done the reforms we required, the finance bill of this year would have been reducing the burden on Kenyans. Because you told us very clearly last year that this is the silver bullet. Chair, our fiscal policy, environment and framework. In the last 18 months, 24 months, we seem to be playing ping pong with the economic policy. No one knows whether next year we'll have another tax hikes on areas that promote investments. There's no certainty. There's no predictability. How do we convince people to come into this market if next year again we'll have the kind of thing happening today? People going to the streets because the gains we've made in the previous finance acts and finance bills are being eroded by doing the right thing we should be doing. Chair, I would like to know how the Treasury is working with the Office of the Auditor General. Because the office has flagged so many things the last 1 year. The areas where you're losing money in the counties at the national government level. Issues of accountability by CDF committees in the constituencies, the various ministries and the parastatals. What is being done to ensure that that is available is being used the right way, so that the measures we are now proposing, the austerity measures we are now proposing, are able to make us have some gains in that. And finally, just following up on what Honorable Millie has said, in these cuts, and I say this is a very heavy cut, a very heavy hat, in these cuts, there is almost a clear pattern that in the cuts you're making, the MPs who voted no are being targeted in their constituencies. What do you have to say about that? Thank you.
Let me go to Honorable Ruth. I was almost saying AU, but I realized, I read something that something is happening.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you Treasury and especially our Prime Cabinet Secretary, who is somebody I know very well, very good friend. I'm happy to have this opportunity to at least ask a few questions. First of all, what I would like to say is how sincere are we with this kind of budget cuts? For me, these budget cuts I see are mostly targeting actually the common mwananchi. Because when you look at it, you talk about maintaining affordable housing. Yet, we are having cuts on TVETs. And many of these TVETs were there to help support our young people to get to go to these colleges to be able to work within this affordable housing that we were saying. When you look at the pending, when you say you have cuts on some of the development projects, which means we are going to increase even the pending bills that we have. And those pending bills, really, as I'm speaking to you right now, contractors are really suffering. Not only in the national government projects, but even the county governments, because they're not being paid. And now there's these measures of maybe having even extra pending bills because of these cuts that you're actually bringing up. What are we going to do? Because how was it informed? Within this short period, have you looked? When I look at it, there are projects that are there that were under public participation of areas that had floods. And these floods, we are saying we want gambions. We want the flood mitigations to be done. And you're cutting those mercilessly across. Yet we are going to still have the floods next year. Or have we done something on climate change? Yeah. So basically, I know we are saying we want to do this cuts. And when you also look at it, we already had been complaining even in Parliament about equity. Yes, there were areas that were not having any development projects or anything. Now that you're going to cut, does it mean that these places that didn't even have these projects are going to be cut further? Or like my colleague Millie Odhiambo said, there's going to be some equity and fair distribution of this cut across the whole country? Because I am sure that when I look at the list that we even have here on the public participation, it looks like mostly the areas that comes from the people who you are saying, for example, are supporting Gen Z or that said no corruption. Because without that issue of corruption, and yet the PS, you're still alluding to the idea that the taxes, people should be taxed. And you know, the people are not saying that they shouldn't be taxed. They're just saying don't overtax, because when you overtax, people don't give you tax anymore. They actually avoid giving that tax. So the issue is not that people don't want to pay tax, but don't look at revenue collection only as tax-based and putting higher taxes on the people. Asante sana. My last question, sorry. On the road maintenance levy, which will generate about 32 billion, will this go to the exchequer or is it going to the roads board?
Thank you very much.
I would like to have that answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ruth. Members, I'm not trying to control for us to comment, but to be very fair, because you've been sitting here for 4 days. We have project lists from all MDAs. In my opinion, we can take this debate in a different mode, because the housing was here in the morning, we had the list, so that we don't concentrate on one side, then we leave out very important issues which we need to engage with. Because looking at the issues where the money has been cut, that is number 5. Rectification, we know it was all constituencies. Roads project, GK actually was very forthright to come with a whole list. It was cutting across. So I'm just requesting so that we are able to give this session the weight it deserves by dealing with the issues that cuts across all the people of Kenya. If you allow, we take 3 more, they respond, then another round. Let me start with the Bishop's daughter.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, the Prime Cabinet Secretary and the team from Treasury for your presentation. And I'm also happy that you're before this committee, not just as the acting CS Treasury, but also as the one who is charged with the responsibility of coordination and supervision of government and the state departments. Because it will be very important after we pass this supplementary budget to actually follow up as the supervisor of the ministries, whether they are doing the right thing. My question is this: my colleagues have talked about corruption, but I want to go further and say the Auditor General is doing a very good job under the circumstances as an office. Every quarter or every year, we have audit reports of how different government entities are spending their monies. I want to ask whether as a government we are taking keen interest on the audit reports, or they're just other reports, and what actions are being done. Because as we talk about budget cuts, we have to talk about corruption and wastage as one of the things that has brought us to where we are. So I wanted to ask about the audit reports, or they're just reports, both from the counties, parliament, judiciary,